Okay, I think we'll get started. So this is a workshop style session. So what we're going to do is we're going to have do a reading from James chapter 3. And Austin's going to lead us through that. And then Brother Glenn will come up and take us through his workshop here on practicing wisdom in the use of electronic communication. So we'll see what we can learn out of that. Maybe we'll know what LOL stands for. Maybe that's I'm hoping to get out of it. Maybe a few more things. Okay, Austin, will you come up and want to read to us James chapter 3?
James chapter 3. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not the word, or not in word, the same is a perfect man, and also able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold, also the ships, which, though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth, and the tongue is a fire, and the world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Wherewith bless we God, even the Father, and wherewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either vine, figs? So no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out a good conversation, his works with meekness of wisdom. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in the peace of them that make peace.
Thanks a lot, Austin. Okay, we'll ask Brother Glennon to come up and lead us through this session here this afternoon. Thanks, Brother Dave. Thank you, Austin. So as mentioned, or as announced, I should say, our address this afternoon is about practicing wisdom in the use of electronic communications, or as I have up here, e-speak, talking electronically. So I hope you've all filled out your worksheets there. It was just kind of a way to get you thinking about how this applies to yourself. And I always find if I do a little research before listening to a talk, it has so much more value for me than if I just go at it cold. So that's part of the reason I had y'all do that, and we'll be talking about some of that stuff from that worksheet as we go through this.
So just by way of introduction, I guess, Brother Sid now and then shares a bit of wisdom that was once passed on to him. And he would hear that bit of wisdom when he was burning trash or starting a campfire, using a torch. It was that fire makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Fire makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Any idea what that might mean? Anyone have an idea what that might mean?
You can play with fire, but it would take a hard time to put it out.
That's right. Anybody else got anything to add? I see a lot of nods, yeah.
Hard to control.
Hard to control? Very good. It means that fire is a wonderful thing so long as you're in control of it. It heats our homes, produces our electricity, our hot water, fires our engines, roasts our marshmallows. But fire is a terrible thing when it is in control. It destroys homes, forests, cities, indiscriminately taking life and reducing years and years of work and growth to ashes drifting on the breeze. And the more it burns, the harder it is to stop. You see, fire is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Well, what does that have to do with communication? What's it got to do with us talking to each other? Well, as we just heard, James seemed to think it had a lot to do with talking. Just to read in context here, for we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, and able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also, the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, that is, it's a part of the members of our body, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed, and has been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. That's from the reading there in James 3. The tongue is a fire that can set the whole course of life on fire like that of the valley of Hinnom. The tongue, you see, that is our words, things that we say with our tongue, makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. What does that mean? The tongue makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Dave?
It's good as long as you have control of it.
It's good as long as you have control of it. Exactly. It means that our words are wonderful things when we are in control of them. They allow us to share information, to interact meaningfully, to make people happy, help them when they're sad. And they let us live effectively and efficiently. But our words are terrible things when they are in control. That is, when we are not carefully keeping them in check. They destroy friendships, confuse the truth, steal happiness, and replace it with anger, hatred, and sadness. They reduce years and years of trust and love and reliance to cold suspicion and unfounded hate. The tongue is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Now, what's the tongue got to do with electronic communication? I'm going to use the term social media here interchangeably. Social media includes any form of sharing information that allows groups of people to interact. So, things like Facebook, Twitter, online dating sites are a form of social media, chat rooms, even YouTube. I use the term social media because this is the next big thing. It's what your generation will build their lives around. Matter of fact, they already do. Don't believe me? Let me present for your intellectual feasting the Facebook stats from last week's famous McGuffey News. 48% of 18 to 34-year-olds check Facebook right when they get up. 48%. 50% of active users log on to Facebook in any given day. That means half the people with a Facebook page will log on today, and tomorrow, and the next day. The average user has 130 friends, that is, people that you're directly connected with online. People spend over 700 billion minutes every month on Facebook. And there are over 900 million objects that people interact with. Things like pages, groups, events, and community pages. That's not including other people. Now, for those of you who don't use social media, you'll find that the principles of most forms of electronic communication are very nearly the same. So simply consider the forms you use the most and will continue to use the most. By the way, did anyone find... let me just see which question that was on the worksheet there. Did anyone find that they couldn't circle anything on question 3? No, everyone had something to circle on question 3? Good. I figured everyone had at least used the telephone before. That's electronic communication. I didn't have a telegraph on here. Anyone's really outdated. But. Okay, excellent. So, you can kind of take a look at that and try to apply these principles to each of those, but it's certainly the ones that you use the most. So, what's the tongue or our words got to do with social media? Well, what's the chainsaw got to do with cutting? A chainsaw is a way to cut, right? Well, social media is a way to talk. We used to use hand saws to cut, right? The same way we used to use our mouths to speak to people in person, and we still do sometimes. But a chainsaw is a new way to cut, a more effective way. And social media is a very effective way at sharing ideas. So, if we had some cutting to do, would it be best to use a chainsaw or a handsaw? Blurt it out. What do you think?
Depends what you're cutting.
Depends what you're cutting. Yep, that's exactly right. Correct answer, it depends. If you don't know how to use a chainsaw, you better not mess with it, because when you mess up with a chainsaw, you really mess up. Whether it's messing up what you're working with or messing up yourself. You don't just nick your finger or scrape your knee when you're using a chainsaw. Cut off half your hand. Or shred your knee down to the bone marrow. Thank goodness I wasn't using one the other day. Besides, a handsaw takes nearly no maintenance at all. While a chainsaw needs dozens of teeth sharpened correctly, needs the right fuel mixture, needs chain oil, needs the correct chain tension, you need to know how to adjust your choke correctly, you need safety gear, you need tools, you need clothes that you don't mind being showered in wood shavings. Now, on the other hand, if you've got a lot of cutting to do, it may be worth it to learn to use a chainsaw safely and effectively. Correct? You see, a chainsaw gives you the ability to cut fast. It's a tool. Social media gives you the ability to spread stuff fast. It's a tool. You can type a message and let the whole world see it, no matter how far away they are. Whereas talking is limited to those near you. You can share pictures, thoughts, videos, etc. instantly and get a whole group of folks talking about them, even when they're nowhere near each other. But if you're not in control of social media, you'd better not be using it. If you don't know the principles that apply online, you're in no situation to be spreading stuff on it, because when you spread stuff online, good or bad, you really spread it. The whole world sees it. They all see the example you set. Everyone on earth with a computer or a phone in their pocket can be impacted by the words you just typed. When you set a bad example in person, you pretty well know everyone who saw it, although you never know how far it's going to go. But when you set that example online, you have no idea how many people saw a display of sinful attitude, or how many ways or times it will be shared, remembered, documented, and how your reputation and your values in the eyes of others will be changed by it. You see, a chainsaw cuts fast. No matter if it's cutting something it should be cutting or not. It will do what it's designed to do. It will cut fast. Social media shares thoughts quickly. Whether those thoughts are good ones or bad ones, it will do what it's designed to do. It will spread them quickly. But just like you better be careful what's being cut when you put a chainsaw against it, you better be careful what's being said when you use social media to say it. Don't think it gets people in trouble? Let's take a look at some examples of how technology spreads bad things and has gotten people in a world of trouble. With this picture. This picture's worth 1,000 words, isn't it? I think this one's worth 1,001. Pictures are a display of who you are and what you do. And those are shared online just as effectively or more so than words. And of course, social media loves pictures, loves videos. That's what it's about. These are things that we find entertaining as humans. And so you think about the meanings that are conveyed, the principles that are conveyed when you put a picture or a video or whatever online. Just a couple news articles here. Tweeting during a game, the NBA and NFL, so that's the National Basketball Association in the States, and NFL, National Football League, have strict rules for using social media. It's banned 45 minutes before NBA games, 90 minutes before NFL games, and it extends through the post-game press conferences for both. So don't be texting during your press conference. That kind of makes sense, I guess. While a slew of players forget the rule, Mavericks owner Mark Cuban and Bengals wide receiver Chad Ochocinco got the harshest reminders. Both men got a $25,000 bill for their short-term memory lapse. So, I think no one holds you accountable for what you put online? If the NBA and the NFL will hold you accountable with a $25,000 fine, I think probably God's going to hold you accountable as well. Another one, you all know Tiger Woods. Alleged Tiger Woods' mistress releases X-rated text messages she claims are from the golfer. We think of social media as a bad thing, and maybe text messages as a little less harmful, but there's been lots of folks got in big trouble over text messages they never should have sent. And the thing about any of these forms of social media, it's documented. You wrote it down. It's not something that's like said and then no one heard it, where only the people around heard it. It's documented. It's like if someone was carrying a voice recorder around every time you said something, it could be played back. That's what things that you type are. It's digital, it's easy to share, it's easy to copy. Everyone can see it. So have some accountability and some responsibility with those things. There's another guy, actually I didn't put up here, Tony Parker. He plays for the San Antonio Spurs, so pretty close to home for me. And married to a beautiful wife. And she just filed for divorce because he was sending illicit text messages to other women, one of which was another player's wife. So again, another celebrity getting themselves in a deep hole over irresponsible use of social media. This is from the Atlantic Wire. Another racist Twitter scandal gets another Olympic athlete to boot. So this was the second Olympic athlete that got banned from the games over something they put on social media. This guy was Michel Morganella. He got himself expelled. He's a Swiss soccer player. He had some racist comments on Twitter, I believe it was. It was on Twitter. He got himself expelled from the games. So, this is something that only happens every 4 years. World Championships. And, for those of you that know very much about Olympic athletes, you basically get one shot at the Olympic Games. 4 years down the road, your body's going to be going downhill already. And, World Championship material doesn't last that long. So, this person they lost their chance at playing in a soccer tournament that was the World Championships. And they let the rest of their team down as well. And when we think of the ecclesia as the team, and when we represent ourselves incorrectly online, that reflects on the rest of our team, the rest of the ecclesia here. And this was the second one. The first one you might have heard about, Vola Papakhristou, I think is the way you pronounce her name. That was Greece's triple jump champion. Best triple jumper in Greece. She's going to the Olympic Games, but she got disqualified again for a racist and unsportsmanlike comment about South Africans. Another example, Facebook getting people fired. It's happened a few times. Pictures that were posted on Facebook got people fired from their jobs. So if your boss is going to hold you accountable for what goes online, you should give it a second thought, for sure. And the thing is, we are doubly accountable for that. We're not just accountable to our bosses or the people that know us. We're accountable to God, as we claim to maintain His principles. It not only affects our reputation as a person, but as a Bible student. Every example you put forward is viewed with respect to who you are and what you stand for. And I've talked to several Canadians that were non-religious or even anti-religious, and almost all, if not every single one of them, has cited one of the reasons they disdain the Bible is because the people that believe the Bible are hypocrites. They see hypocrisy in people that claim to believe the Bible, and so they turn away from it. Now, right or wrong, what we do affects people's views of us, and of the Scriptures, and of Christadelphians, and of Christ Himself. And there's one last slide to leave with on that. With great power comes great responsibility. So let's turn to our worksheets for a moment. What answers do we have for question 1? Describe at least 3 principles that should be considered when speaking to someone in person. As an example, courtesy. Some principles.
Eye contact.
Eye contact, okay. Yeah, Sid?
You need to listen to yourself because you usually sound different to the other person than you think you're sounding.
Okay. So I think I listed that under sympathy, putting yourself in other people's shoes. Okay. Anyone else? Kind of looking for general principles.
Truthfulness.
Truthfulness, honesty. That's an excellent example. That should be one of the first ones. Honesty. Yes, Sister Beatrice.
All the answers from the Scriptures.
Yeah, speaking scripturally. Yeah. Yes.
Exercise understanding.
Understanding. Very good. Yeah, Dave.
Actively listen to the other person.
Active listening. Yeah. That's just a form of respect, really, isn't it? Yeah, Brother Sid.
And I guess this comes under courtesy, but what you say about other people.
Yeah. Avoidance of gossip, basically. Okay, so this is the list that I kind of put together. Terry actually helped me with this. Brother Ben, did you have one? Sorry.
Just stay engaged, I guess. Show an interest.
Yeah, show an interest. Yeah, that's about respect and courtesy as well. Yeah, very good. So these are kind of the principles that I put together. I'm sure there's more, and a lot of these are very broad, and some of them overlap. Honesty, respect and courtesy, all of those are brought out. Clarity. When you say something, think about the way it's heard, not just about the way you're saying it. Example and impact on hearers. Purity of speech, we're speaking according to Scriptures, according to things that are pure. Avoidance of gossip. Love should be a consideration in all of our actions. Love first of God, and love secondly of others. That doesn't just mean their short-term benefit, but their long-term benefit. Seeking first to understand, or listening carefully. Sympathy, encouragement, admonishing, which you typically kind of think of as opposites, encouragement and admonishing, but they should be coupled hand in hand, really. Patience and long-suffering, and peace and harmony. The reason I put patience and long-suffering in there, sometimes when we're discussing something with someone and they're not getting it, it can be very easy to get frustrated with them or just kind of write them off as an idiot. And a lot of times it takes some patience or long-suffering to really discuss something in detail with someone, understand where their shortcomings are and how you can really help them. And instead of just trying to force it on them the way that you understand it or the way that it makes sense to you, you might have to sometimes explain it a little differently than the way it was explained to you to get someone else to understand it. So a few verses that support that. Colossians 3, verse 8 and 9. Put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. So what are the principles we're talking about there? Anger or malice, that's hatred towards others. Blasphemy, in other words, speaking against God. And filthy communication, in other words, we should have purity of speech. Knowing that, and lie not one to another. Lie not one to another, so that's honesty. Seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds. Titus 3:2, speak evil of no man. It doesn't say speak evil of no good man. It says speak evil of no man. So we should never be going around behind somebody's back talking bad about them. Be no brawlers, that is, don't be looking for an argument, but gentle, showing all meekness unto all men. And these principles are just completely thrown out the window in most online communication. You look at blogs where people can leave comments afterwards, or even social media posts that people respond to, and it's just, the dirtiest language sometimes, and the deepest show of disrespect for the authors. They're brawlers. You go around and looking for a fight and looking for a way to insult someone without anyone holding you accountable. And that's the opposite of what we should be displaying. Not be brawlers, but be gentle, showing all meekness unto all men. And Titus 2:1, speak thou the things which become sound doctrine. That's a pretty high responsibility there. If we're going to be saying something, or even sharing something, or repeating something, in person or online, it better be according to God's words, according to sound doctrine. Finally, my brothers, whatsoever things are true, whatever things are honest, whatever things are right, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, anything with any virtue or any praise or honor, think on these things. And of course, the things that we think on are the things that we'll speak on. Thoughts give birth to words. Here's a advice in 1 Timothy, or command in 1 Timothy to the women. It says, and with it all, they also learn to be idle, going around the houses, and not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things they ought not. Therefore, I want the younger ones to marry, bear children, guide the house, giving no occasion to the adversary because of reproach, for some have already turned aside after Satan. And so we get a good idea of the things that God values and the things that He doesn't. He doesn't value tattlers and busybodies and people that go around saying whatever comes to their mind, speaking things that they ought not, but He wants us to use wisdom in what comes out of our mouth, or what comes from our keyboard, what comes through our phone. And he goes on to say, giving no occasion to the adversary because of reproach. And it takes a lot of wisdom to make sure that none of the things that you say or display will ever give someone a reason to come back and say, what about that thing that you did? Or what about when you said this? And that's a pretty big burden as well for those of us who are believers. We're preaching something. We better be displaying it in every word that comes out of our mouth and everything that comes across our computer screen. One of my favorites, actually, because it's easier for me to remember, although I have a very hard time applying it. Therefore, my beloved brothers, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. Be quick to hear, but be slow to speak, and slow to wrath. So many times, if we would just stop and think before we open our mouth, we wouldn't be stuck with our foot in it afterwards. Okay, so question 2, some principles of virtual interaction. Principles again. So think things like honesty, respect, courtesy, godliness, purity. Are there any of these that don't apply, or that apply when speaking in person but don't when we're communicating? I see Eileen shaking her head no. Anyone else? That's it?
Yeah, no, never mind. I think I'm off track with my answer.
Okay. This is my answer. I tell you, there's not a single principle that applies when we're speaking in person that does not apply when we're speaking electronically. If you're going to type something online that you wouldn't say to someone in person, what are you doing? If it's against the principles of personal communication, don't do it virtually. Don't do it in virtual interaction. So all of these principles apply, again, virtual interaction, honesty, respect, and courtesy. Even to a person across the world that you've never met that has some username like Afghan888, it doesn't matter. You show them courtesy and respect. You speak to them with clarity. You speak to them honestly. You consider your example and impact on that person in hearing your language. You consider purity of speech. You avoid gossip. You consider your love of God and others. You seek first to understand where they're coming from. You speak with sympathy, encouragement, admonishment, patience, and you follow the things that make for peace. All of these principles apply, whether you're speaking electronically or speaking in person. Some pitfalls of online interaction. Common pitfalls. Things that a lot of people go awry on. Online interaction often encourages egotism. You know, when you have a page, like a Facebook page or a Twitter account or a YouTube account, you can post whatever you want on there to make you look however you want to look. It's a common thing. You know, people love being online because they can make themselves whoever they want to be. That's egotism. You're creating an ego for yourself. And if that's based out of pride, it's not a good thing. So that's a common pitfall. Another one is it allows venting. I don't know how many times I've gotten online and I've seen someone that just gets on there and writes some generic rant about something that they're upset about. You can tell it's about one person, but who knows who the person is or what they did. Just some generic ranting because they feel like they need to get something off their chest, and they can write it online without finding somebody that's patient enough to listen to what they're saying. That's not right either. If you have a problem with someone, the Scriptures say you go to them humbly between you and them alone. You don't go venting it in generic language online or from a platform or to another person. Another problem is it connects with the world. Connecting with people is a good thing. When we can connect with someone and share profitable impact on that person, that's a good thing. But connecting with the ideas of the world, that's a bad thing. And unfortunately, online communication deals with both. You will come into contact with a lot of ideas, thoughts, concepts that the world puts forward as right. And we have to be wise and discerning enough, we're talking about wisdom here, wise and discerning enough to see that those don't collaborate with the Scriptures and how they don't. And then, of course, we have a responsibility to make a positive impact there rather than a negative. It can be addicting. Like I said, half the people from 18 to 34, as soon as they wake up, they look at their Facebook. Now, how much time are you spending there? It's right across from it, wasting time. How much time do you spend on it? Is that a wise use of your time? A lot of times it depends on what you're doing on there, but that's something we have to consider. It spreads gossip. Online media, social media is an excellent way to spread gossip because you can spread it far and wide very quickly. Are you going to use that to spread gossip, or are you going to use it to spread positive words? Temptation or peer pressure, something we deal with all the time in our lives every day, but it's online as well. Romantic irresponsibility. I don't know how many people just get online and they just hit on every girl they can find just because if she turns you down, who cares? You never met her, you go on to the next one. Try it again. That's not being responsible in your interaction with someone else. That's a person. It's a person you're interacting with. They deserve your respect and your courtesy. They deserve your honesty. And a lot of that is because of limited accountability. You can select who sees you. You can select who knows who you really are on there. And that limited accountability should be nothing that allows us to change our actions. Because we know there's someone watching us. Everything that we do will be held accountable for eventually. I've got a friend who's in her 4th year at the university. She's studying commerce and marketing. A few of y'all know her. She works in public relations at the synchrotron. And so I asked her when we were getting ready to do a lecture, what was the most effective way to advertise for that lecture. Her answer was basically, it's all about social media. Here's someone that spent 4 years learning how to advertise effectively, and her advice is to me, it's all about social media. That's the most powerful marketing tool you can use. In her mind, it was. And that's what she's been taught. The biggest corporations and the best marketing professionals, even the ones that have funds for national TV ads, radio commercials, telemarketing, they're all turning to social media. And I have social media. And you have social media. Arguably the most powerful marketing tool on earth. What are you going to use it for? Here's an example. If someone from the 1950s suddenly appeared today, what would be the most difficult thing to explain to them about life today? This is on AskReddit.com. The number one answer: I possess a device in my pocket that is capable of accessing the entirety of information known to man. I use it to look at pictures of cats and get in arguments with strangers. And unfortunately, that's a pretty good response for most people. So this is a tool. What are you going to use it for? It's the most valuable tool for sharing something. The most valuable advertising tool you can get. You think if you had $1 million worth of coupons for national TV ads, what would you put on your national TV ad? What would you share with the world on your 30-second Super Bowl commercial? Oh, that's a pretty big thing, isn't it? A lot of people are going to come into contact with that. Well, guess what? We have that. It's in your online presence. So, sounds to me like social media is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. What does that mean? Social media is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. Anyone? Sid?
Useful if you use it properly.
Useful if you use it properly. Gordon, you got something to add?
Just say it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
Very effective.
Yeah, a very effective one, exactly. Brother Ed?
I think it's one of the most effective and powerful tools we have right now for spreading the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that some of our pioneers are here, like Brother Thomas and Brother Roberts. That's what they used in their day. I think that you're right on top of that now, but using it as a servant, not as a master.
Exactly.
That's the key to it. And I think one of the things that we so often do, and this comes from the principle of thinking before you act or speak. It used to be when we wrote letters, you'd write a letter, you type it out or write it out, and you had to put it in an envelope, maybe you do mail it the next day, but you'd have another look at it. This isn't what I want to say. Or I shouldn't have said it this way. Or we're in business where our secretary would make you type it out and say, are you sure you wanted to say it this way? Oh, no. But with this kind of media, it's so easy just to hit that send button and it's gone. You can't get it back.
Yep. Exactly. So just like fire can be used for good if we keep it in control, but it's terrible when it gets out of control. Just like a chainsaw is effective for good when it's controlled, but is devastating when it's not. Social media is a powerful and effective thing. It's powerful and effective positively when we use it correctly, and it's powerful and effective in causing damage to you and others when it controls you. When we are in control of it, technology can spread positive influence to literally thousands of people. It can be a tool that connects people with the truth. I've seen it firsthand more than once. It offers us countless opportunities to interact positively by encouraging, counseling, sharing knowledge, holding one another accountable, cheering one another, sympathizing with one another. But when it controls us, it becomes a parasitic addiction. It robs us of our time. It turns our joy in friendship into malice and distrust. Turns our focus away from helping one another and towards tearing one another down through gossip and slander. It turns us from God to the sentiments of the world. It turns our influence from positive to negative. And the more it controls us, the harder it is to bring back into control. So, how should we use technology to communicate, if we're going to use it at all? It's a discussion question. It's basically question 5. Yeah, I guess I have it there on this PowerPoint. It's question 5. What do you feel is the primary value of the media that you use? Whether that's the telephone, or Twitter, or an email, or a fax machine. Have any answers for what do you think is the most valuable, the primary value of that media is? You can tell us what your media is, and then you can tell us what you think the value is. Yeah, Anita.
Sharing the truth or supporting those in the truth, wherever it is.
Okay. And which one are you talking about using there?
I would say telephone or email for me.
Telephone or email for you? Yeah. And that really applies across the board. Sharing the truth and staying in touch with those around the world. Excellent. Yeah, Brother Dan.
Well, we just looked at setting up Skype here recently for the ability to reach those at a distance and create classes to expand the availability of Sundays. So now it opens up to other classes that people are able to attend.
Excellent. Dave, got one?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Okay.
I guess one thing I like about the digital electronic communications, you can address multiple people with one communication, and also they can receive it and read it at their leisure, not at a time that may be inconvenient for them. It's like a phone call. It's nice because you can hear the reflection in the voice, and it's a bit more effective that way. But you both have to be there live on the line. Or an email, if trying to connect to someone that's busy, probably a better chance that you'll connect with them that way.
Yeah. For example, Sister Esther sends out the commandments of Christ. she's in Wales. She's 6-hour time difference from us. Like, when would she call us all and share that with us? But she can just send out an email. Doesn't matter if I receive it at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 in the afternoon. I'll still get it. Any others, guys? Anybody else want to share? Yeah, Brother Brent.
It's been a long one, but we live, especially as younger generation, we live in a world where you walk down halls in school or in malls and everyone's staring down at their phone and people aren't communicating anymore. So we have an unparalleled opportunity, like Brother Ed said, to touch or to broadcast, to touch the masses instantly and with great speed. And something that there's a lot of research on this, and we've done this where I work on it. But there's a lot of research that it suggests that the younger generation, as much as we like to think that we're individuals and we make our own thoughts, succumb very easily to what's popular, what's trendy, and whatnot. So in sharing things that are, I guess, appropriate or pleasing to God, or things that we should be sharing, it allows you to broadcast something positive to the masses, to suggest to them that it's actually okay to read the Bible or to do something. So yes, like you said, it can absolutely be used for damage, but at the same time, you can share to whatever your group of friends is very quickly what you think is right, and then they'll say, oh, well, somebody else thinks it's right. Maybe it is cool for me to do it.
Right, exactly. As you foster communication about good things, in that sense. Yeah, foster good habits. Excellent. Yeah, Billy Gordon.
Well, I think one of the benefits of the telephone is being able to get an answer immediately. I guess sometimes that could be a disadvantage, but mostly it's an advantage.
Mm-hmm. And again, if you think about it as a tool, there are some times where it's great to use a chainsaw. If I was going to trim the corner on this desk to make it a little less rough, chainsaw would be a really bad thing to use, right? There's situations where each tool comes in great value, and other times where it's not appropriate. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the another pitfall of using technology is when you have a problem with someone, or you have a sensitive situation, it's very easy to just shoot them an email or write something down and send it off for them, and you don't have to deal with their reaction to it in person. You don't have to humble yourself and come before that person. But in Matthew, when he tells you what to do when you're going and speaking to someone who's sinned against you, it doesn't say tell them their sin. It says go and tell them their sin between you and him alone. So it's not just the privacy, it's the going to the individual. And so, in that case, maybe writing him a Facebook message or a text message is not a good way to do it. Where maybe some of you guys saw that fluke there where the dad sends his son a text and says, your mom and I are going to divorce next month. And kid's like, what? At least you could have done is call me instead of sending me a text message. And of course he says, I broke Disney and put divorce. We're going to Disney next month, not we're going to divorce next month. But, that's another example. Sometimes it's not appropriate to use some of the newer tools that we have. Sometimes, face-to-face communication is the best. Brother Dan?
I was just going to add to what you said. I believe that's even written in our ecclesial guide, that it is not something that should be done in social media. It should be done face-to-face. And I believe that is one of the rules that's written down in our ecclesial guide. And we often wonder now with so much of the social media that's out there, how often we escape from personal contact. And really, I think that will probably come up in your number 7, but just to add to what you said there, it is actually written down as one of our rules.
Yeah. This is actually the last question that we're going to go over together here. So, yeah. If anyone has any comments on the others, go ahead.
I think it was kind of touched on this before, but when you're communicating on social media or electronically, there's less context. If you're in a conversation with somebody, there's a lot that enters into that communication. There's body language, there's, somebody mentioned eye contact, there's all those kinds of things, whereas if you just see a typed out sentence or statement, there's a lot of communication actually missing out of that communication that you get in a person-to-person conversation.
Yeah, and that's number 7. That's your shortcomings. You need to know those. Brother Dan.
I didn't realize we were going to go to the other questions, but I do have another question, if I right?
Sure.
If it's out of place, just go ahead and stop telling me and deal with it. Go ahead and get it later. But it kind of bothers me, I guess, a little bit that, I mean, I include myself in this because we sat here and 100% of us have admitted that we use social media of some sort. And the social media, we've admitted that it can be used for good or bad. My question would be, what percentage, if 100% of us use social media, what percentage is weak that can't control those urges that come on you? And you had said as you were going through it that these things flash in front of you. You know, even yourself, you see these people picking at arguments or people that gossip, and how often that we get swept into those things. And who's the weak one that might get involved in that? I've seen it before too. You know, where people get involved in arguments and to debates and how easily that can tear you down. And if you're constantly put in front of you, when is it next where you might start swearing? You know what I mean? Like, we look at the little kids going to school. You know, I go to Sanders School and I can't believe the language. Well, where are they hearing it? You know, it's either at home or they're hearing it on TV or they're hearing it through, you know, Facebook or Twitter or Twitter or whatever they call it. So it worries me. It actually bothers me a little bit. Just to sit here thinking about it. So and you never want to do it, especially here, but my question would be, how many hands would go up as to who has misused social media? And that's just something people have to ask themselves. Mm-hmm. Because to me, I see that social media is gone worldwide. But I see more use for wrong than we do for right. And it's easy for us to sit here and think that, and myself included, that we use it only for good. Mm-hmm. We don't. Really, it's just that worrying thought. You know, the longer I sit here and listen to your talk.
Mm-hmm. And so you may have picked that up in questions 4 and 5. What is your primary use of this media? And what do you feel like is the primary value of this media? You know, are you using it for something good, or is it just another way to slip up and it's not providing any benefit at all? Well, if that's the case, or even if the temptation outweighs the benefit, or comes close to outweighing it, sometimes you need to sit down and say, you know what? Maybe I don't need Facebook. Maybe I don't need a TV. Maybe I don't need whatever. You know, and it's something that each person has to evaluate for themselves. You know, you sit down and think about, what are the ways that I'm using this? What is the impact that this has? You know, and is it a good use of my time, or could I be doing better things with that? Yeah, Lucid?
Part of any of the things that you talked about that could be a good servant or a terrible master is planning, right? You know, it's part of planning to decide to use the handsaw instead of the chainsaw. It's part of planning to have a pail of water there if you're going to light a little grass fire. And it's part of planning to open Facebook and decide, what am I going to do while I'm on Facebook? Is this something that I'm going to pursue? You know, like Kelly brought up in his talk this morning about, as surely as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the knowledge and the glory of the Lord. Is this something we're going to use for that? Or do we go on there without a plan? Do we pick up the chainsaw without a plan? Do we light the fire without a plan? You're setting yourself up for failure. We've got to try and set ourselves up for success. Yeah. And success is supposed to be, for us, the glory of God on the earth.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you all for your input. Excellent. Excellent comments that were given. So just in closing here, well, here's a few examples that we've talked about most of these here. Primary value of technology: communicating electronically, sharing the truth, encouraging one another, comforting. You know, a lot of times we focus on sharing the truth, but most of the people that we connect with meaningfully online are people that are already in the truth. You know, whether it's through email or, so it shouldn't just be about sharing the truth. It should also be about encouraging those that are in the truth, comforting those that are in the truth, interacting with them, building relationships, learning from them, admonishing, providing accountability to those people, as well as sharing with those who aren't in the truth yet, or don't have a grasp of the things concerning the kingdom of God, the name of Christ. Let's see. I think I've got one last slide here. Just close up. Every tool we're given and every talent we're given requires us to be good stewards. That means we have to use them correctly. Being a good steward means using the tool correctly. If you're going to use it correctly, put it down. That's fine too. Technology is no different. Understand the problems people tend to have with them. Understand how to use them correctly. They can be valuable tools, or they can make you miserable. Just depends on who's in control. Some people need to use a chainsaw, some people don't. Sometimes it's best to use it, sometimes it's best just to keep your handsaw. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys. Hope you guys have found it beneficial and helpful. And turn it back over to Brother Dave.